This is compiled from the testimonies of a hospital corpsman referred to here as Doc and a Latino supply marine we will call Lopez. This retelling chronicles the events of Friday, March 3rd through Saturday, March 4th, of this year, 2017, and the events leading up to that weekend. Their testimonies were sent to the landowner in this story, who responded, "I have nothing to add. Change the names for decency's sake." Some names and identifying details have been changed to protect the privacy of individuals. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, is purely coincidental. John Field bought a section of land 4 years ago southwest of the Rodman Mountains wilderness area, 30 minutes outside of Palm Springs, California. The land had been known to have 2 dry gold mine shafts that had closed down after being no longer profitable to the previous owner. John made a post on a large close privacy military social media page, advertising that he had large swaths of land in the desert driving distance from 29 Palms, and he was opening his property for the weekend, allowing current and prior service military the chance to come shoot on his land, provided they help him explore and map out the mines, as the previous owners had not maintained the maps prior to selling. Over the following 2 weeks, a total of 32 Marines and sailors from 29 Palms and Camp Pendleton responded with interest. On Friday, March 3rd at 1,300 people started arriving. The last persons arrived in a rented camper, Winnebago, amounting to a total of 35 people including the landowner, John Field. As the people arrived to the arid high desert property, Mr. Fields locked the gate onto and off of his property. He claimed that, while the nearest neighbor was 5 miles away, a 1-mile drive away and 4 miles on the state road, and that noise complaints, police visits were a very low chance, any cops would be seen 4 miles off, and the gate would add extra time to stow any weapons of questionable legality. This is still California, and would provide valuable time to take alcohol from an underage people. "I thought this was a bit of overkill," said Doc, "but it's his land. We're guests and getting to dick around with some really cool guns at that." Nobody spoke up about it. I sort of appreciated it, having brought more than a couple 30 road mags for my pistol build AR-15. My AR-10 is completely legal, and that's the one I wanted to sight in at 800 meters. Later, that locked gate would cause us more than a slight inconvenience. Locking the gate made sense, I guess, but the fence to either side was only barbed wire. My Enduro motorcycle wouldn't get through, but I could push it under the wire on its side if I had to. The Enduro is only 250cc. Recalled Lopez. In the end, the camper made it through easy. I'm really happy Jimenez got the insurance on it, otherwise I'd be paying for our exit. The men who met on Mr. Field's property ranged from Navy, Marine and a handful of prior service Marines. Due to only having 2 viewpoints, not all names will be known. We spent all of that afternoon shooting. There was some rusted equipment left over from the last owners. Doc said. We spray painted bullseyes on them. I had that 308 in really good groups out to 600 meters, but pushing it past that, I don't know, I just could hold a consistent group. Jimenez's civilian buddy, Tom something, I'm not sure, was able to walk it out to a full grand and made it look easy. Doc pauses in reflection. Later on, when we were shooting coyotes, he couldn't hit shit if it was moving. So I got him beat there. That night we all racked out in the yard, continued Lopez. One of the civilians was talking about the glory days and was going on about sleeping in the field on forgotten ops, over romanticizing the shit. We laughed about over few beers and drunkenly agreed to sleep out there for the old guys. Shit was terrible, said Doc. I woke up stiff, hungover and pissed off that I wasn't in my bed. I looked over and my bag had been dumped. I thought I had to be pretty drunk to sleep through coyotes going through my bag. 1 or 2 other bags had gotten the same treatment. Some guys whose bags had been left alone claimed to be missing little things. A knife, here, a jacket, there. No big deal though. Blame it on the coyotes. Break. Going out to dinner with friends in town for Comic-Con. I'll be back in a few hours. Finished typing then. I'm back. Had to kill time and sober up in San Diego before driving back up to Vist, Oceanside area. After we woke up and had coffee, Lopez started. We gathered for a safety brief-style conversation about how to proceed throughout the day. The general understanding, continued Doc, was that there were 2 mine shafts for us to cover. One today on this side of the property and then tomorrow on the far side. Shut the fuck up, Carl. Mr. Field said that once we got inside the mouth of the cave the process was relatively simple. Lopez said. We would walk into the main shaft, which then split off into 3 branches, and at the end of each of those branches, as they spread further and further distance apart from each, had offshoots from them. Doc explained. The primary 3 branches were at an incline leading down into the mountain, and the offshoot branches led down at steeper angles off the walkway, said Doc. We separated into groups of 10 and prepared to move into the caves, said Lopez. Nobody thought it was really necessary, but when Mr. Fields started insisting that we all carry at least a sidearm, some guys kind of chuckled. That's when I started to feel uneasy. We walked closer to the entry and every red flag in me was saying no way. Doc said, now as we begin to enter, who is at this point that Lopez started talking crazy. No man, I'm not going in there. He said, I don't know what's wrong with it, but I've got a bad feeling about going in there. Doc starts laughing. I have to trust my feelings. My grandma agrees, it's like I have a 5th sense. Know when something bad is going to happen. And I'm telling you now, something bad is going to happen. As he said this, 2 other Latino Marines and 1 Filipino sailor decided that they weren't going to go into the cave either. The 4 of them start off to the side, steadfast and convicted that they would not enter. They said that they would stand at the gate with guns, shoot beer cans and play cards with anyone who wanted to stay, but they were all certain that they were not going in. Doc, as I walk into the cave, the process got almost monotonous. Walk until you find a side tunnel, crack a chem light and throw it in. We were checking for drop-offs, turns, cave-ins, that kind of stuff. After about an hour of walking and finding some weird crickets and usual underground shit, we came to where the mine opened up into a room. Looking into the pitch black, it was daunting. You could feel the size of the place and know it was a big room. Probably part of the cave system that the mine was carved out of. We stepped into the chamber and each cracked a chem light, reared back and chucked them. We saw that the room was loosely 40-yard wide and I couldn't see the other end from where we were. The sound of the chem lights smacking the floor and walls as they were thrown echoed in the silence, and at the same time I heard a scrambling on the other end of the room. The sound bled into the echoes of the lights, so it was hard to hear it, so as I strained to hear more I saw movement. And I only saw the head of the thing. Now I understand that I was looking at nearly pitch-black darkness with only a faint green glow from freshly cracked glorified glow sticks amping up in that awkward first seconds of life. I saw 50 yards out, what looked like a big cat. I mean, mountain lion, but a little bit bigger. And it was a black reflection of shadow that seemed bordered by the green glow. Then it was gone. It ran to my right, out of the light. Doc, the guys fanned out to the left and right of the cavern as I processed what I saw, then swung my flashlight to where the black cat had leapt. I could see an exit leading to the next section of tunnels and dismissed it, freaking out a little from being underground combined with Lopez bitching out earlier. My group followed the side exit from the larger chamber and ran into the second group in the middle corridor. I just about pissed myself, and I swear one of the guys screamed. At this point we are told that the other party in an earlier section of that same tunnel had been tossing chem lights into the side hallways like we had been. One of the guys threw a chem light down a side hall tunnel and 2 or 3 steps later it was thrown back. Nobody actually saw anything, and that group took a head count to make sure nobody had snuck off and was fucking with them. Somehow they rationalized it and kept walking until they encountered us. Now I know my group had 9 people, and I thought their group had 9 also, and when I counted them, sure enough, there were 9 guys standing in front of us. They of course started accusing us of stalking them and messing with them when there was a shuffling sound in the hall at the back of the other group. Someone had broke off at a dead sprint away from us, and by the time we had spun around and had flashlights on whomever it was, they had bounded round a corner and were gone. We rushed after and only found some discarded clothes at that side tunnel. One of the guys confirmed it was his hoodie that was missing from this morning. That's when we agreed that the coyotes from last night were in here, and that's what was happening. We were just intruding on them. I asked for another head count. 9 of mine, 8 of theirs. I asked who they were missing and they said no, they'd only had 8 the whole time. I made a joke about Marines being shit at math and that my superior Navy counting had counted 9, and we devolved into a bit of a clusterfuck over it. Then I heard 3 succinct reports of a gun. Guns are loud. Way louder than movies make them seem, way louder than what you remember from range trips that had required ear protection. Gunfire when you are in an enclosed space is worse, and thanks to the acoustic of the mines/cave, it came from everywhere. Collectively, we decided while running, shitting our pants to go back to the large chamber, room and talk there in a place we had room to breathe and think. We hauled ass into that room and the 17 of us spilled out to having lights in our eyes and realized that there were guns on us. No one moved. I saw one of the guys, Tex, a 6 feet 5 inches red-headed redneck from, you guessed it, Texas. He was bleeding from abrasions on his face and a steady drip of blood from his arm. Tex spoke up saying just it obviously wasn't them and that did the trick. Everyone relaxed a bit, lowered weapons, and my larger group WTF'd for a minute. I had my med bag, because I'm a boot like that, and I sat down to bandage Tex. He got me up to speed. He had also had a chem light thrown back. It hit him on the side of the head. Tex falls into the category of people generally not fucked with, especially while carrying 45 Act 1911. His response to having something thrown at him was to pick it up and shove it up someone's newly loosed anus. He had walked down the side tunnel and something had jumped out of a crevasse in the rock wall attacking him. The force of the impact bashed his head on the wall, tinting half of his vision red as blood sheeted his eye. With his only light being the chem light in his hand, he fought off some animal that clawed his arm and darted further into the tunnel. He drew and fired after it in the dark. That 1911 is what we'd heard. The third group had come running to the commotion and gunfire in time to see him back out of the side tunnel, gun still out, as he slowly backed away, leaving that chem light on the ground. Doc Tex said his head hurt, but the cuts on his arm were numbing with the pins and needles kind of tingling, and was worried about shock. In retrospect, I would be surprised if that thing had some sort of natural numbing, narcotic shit going on with its saliva. Talking to the groups, we agreed that it was weird we had started in different offshoots of the tunnel and all ended up in the main chamber. That's when we got a good look around. While we inspected the room, we found a couple smaller openings in the rock that varied in size from half a door in size and smaller, wedged in between different rock faces. I think this is how the thing had been moving around with us in the main passageways. Then we found a nest. It was more of just mounded up fabrics and materials like a homeless guy would have, and it covered a larger space than just one dog would have. There were no bones or blood stains around. Rather, it was very clean. That stood out to me. The smell was like musk, but not really anything that would make you gag. Just a very strong musky animal smell. While the guys were inching closer to the pile, I started going back to check on Tex, who was watching the rear. He was almost dozing off as I got closer, and that's when I saw. I'm not going to defend this in front of people. You ever bring this up in person, in front of people, I'll say you're lying and you won't be welcome in my house again. I saw this thing for the first time. It poured out of a hole in the wall about a yard wide, right behind and about a foot higher than Tex's head. It fell out of the hole. I swear it was a leopard or a black mountain lion or some shit, but what landed was a black man. Nothing else about him was noticeable. No noteworthy traits or features. Just the most average 5 feet 9 inches 30-something-year-old looking black guy you had ever seen. Wearing nothing. He stared intently at the side of Tex's head and stepped forward. As he did, the room went quiet behind me as my mind tried desperately to follow what happened next. As the guy took one step towards Tex, he grew almost a foot and his skin lightened to a freckled pale, his overgrown unkempt almost fro became red and shortened to a regulation haircut. And the thing's hand elongated to black talons as he reached back to strike. The motion of my mind catching up to my hand which had drawn on its own and began to aim caught not Tex's attention and he looked up in time to see my pistol flash. I didn't hear the shot, my ears just started ringing louder than I could talk. 3 more silent muzzle flashes later and not Tex had leapt into the same shaft it had slipped down from. I didn't check if I had hit it or if there was blood. Nothing. Everyone got the message at the first shot fired. We were leaving. I don't much remember anything from the run out other than supporting half of Tex's weight as he was damn near sleepwalking, running out of there. He kept asking what was going on and if he could lay down. Once we got him into the camper, I'm told he slept all the way back to base. Someone told me 3 hours later he woke up hungover and dehydrated. I never heard the first gunshots, said Lopez, but I heard plenty as the guys were coming out. That's why I woke Jimmy Jimenez up and told him to start the camper. I was getting my guys and getting the fuck out of there. Let other people deal with the cops. I'll say I never left the barracks all weekend. They say it too now that I told them that's the official story. I reported the dirt bike stolen and got insurance to buy me a new one. Lopez, I had the Jimmy pull the camper up at an angle so they could pile right in from the driver's seat. I had my R ready. I didn't know what for but I was ready. These guys came out like roaches. Everyone scattered as they came out. Doc and the big redneck got in instantly. Dude looked drugged, called me a wetback as he stumbled on but whatever. I watched as cars filled up and left down the drive, but they all stopped for some reason I couldn't see. After I had all of my guys, plus a few extra, I got while the getting was good. We were hauling ass down the driveway when I saw what had stopped them. The fence. Somehow nobody but us Mexicans know that you can get past a fence. I pulled onto the shoulder of the drive, and then further off the road and squeezed that Winnebago ride between 2 of the barbed wire fence posts. Didn't feel a thing. We were out of there. Jimmy was a little pissed but he got over it. Like I said. Insurance. Doc, I got a ride back out later to get my car. All my shit was packed in the trunk. I wasn't the last person to get my car back, but I was the fastest. Mr. Field tried talking to me when I came back but I ignored him. Walked right past, got in my car and hit 60 before the open gate. I'm never going back. That's all I got, guys. And archived. It's an awful bloody shame the armory's locked off from access. Could really use some of that shit. Or bats such as each kill team has 1 GPMG. Yes, I can hear the bitching already for the poor schmuck who has to carry the fucking thing, with HMGs set up at both cave entrances and within the central cavern as a forward CP. Since it can assume the form of others, according to Doc's unsourceable testimony, not impugning his honor, just respecting his wishes, next go-around we'll have to assign countersigns to specific groups. Tensions will run high, those sparse seconds before the countersign is given will run heavy. Risk of blue on blue. Unless it can't mimic clothes, in which case, kill teams ought to ventilate any fucking nudish they see on site. Recommend purchasing as many portable generators and huge fucking spotlights as possible in the preparation period. Especially for the forward post in the large chamber, herefore designated as the den. I'm working on the expectation that the creature has just as good night vision as your NVGs, if not better. So for deterrent around areas where it really ought not to go, let there be light. Also, do you have anybody that you can reach out to for access to ground pen radar? You are talking about a kind way beyond my means. I trust Doc. He's really down-to-earth kinda guy. I doubt he's ever even been on 4chan. What caught me by surprise was shifters and the like in most of what I've read have been more towards canine attributes, not feline. Messy and smelling like death, not tidy. Going for disembowelment quick. This thing separating people from the group, dosing them and coming back for a much easier kill. You are talking about a kind way beyond my means. I trust Doc. He's really down-to-earth kinda guy. I doubt he's ever even been on 4chan. What caught me by surprise was shifters and the like in most of what I've read have been more towards canine attributes, not feline. Messy and smelling like death, not tidy. Going for disembowelment quick. This thing separating people from the group, dosing them and coming back for a much easier kill. Don't fuck with the wildlife is really about rattlesnakes, the suicidal tortoises, and other biting things, scorpions etc. Yeah, I worked on getting details out of him for a couple days. We're talking about a guy who's grounded to the point that he dismisses ghost stories and… Shut the fuck up, Carl thinks UFOs are horseshit. I'm enlisted, which is for all intents and purposes almost food stamps worthy. Also, Doc and I are both Navy, not Marines. Shit, start a big badass fire and just smoke that motherfucker out or drop high-end explosives in and collapse the caves, which would either crush it or drive it out to be killed on sight. If it's decided there's no other option other than go in, it'd probably be a good idea to have each team wear different uniforms and have them brightly colored at that. Unfortunately, while high-powered rifles would be the most favorable weapons, small-caliber arms and hand-to-hand combat weapons would be the safest bet, so as to not have any ricochets in the caves. As for defense against this shifter, it seems like it relies on claws and teeth. Good, heavy clothing would make it much more difficult to scratch and bite anyone. Heavy denim or leather would probably work. Good luck.